Looks good.
Hey guys, episode I don't remember.
Welcome to another episode of the Strongfit Podcast.
140 something.
No, we met 100. This is like
This is 150,
52, I think.
52 or 53.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh shit.
Yeah. We're
Cool.
getting there.
Yeah.
We're progressing.
That's cool. That would be 3 years if we had done one a week.
Yeah.
Oh shit.
So this episode we're going to cover, I got a message yesterday and Julien says, hey, I have something cool to show you about lactate and glutamate and its relationships with lactate, with
Orexin neurons, with all that stuff.
All that cool stuff. So,
Noradrenaline, anxiety. I don't even know where to start on that, honestly. Let me explain what glutamate is, first of all.
Yeah.
It's an amino acid, what is called a non-essential amino acid, which means we make it ourselves. You also find it in food, but it's also a neurotransmitter in that case. That's what interests us is as a neurotransmitter. It's called an excitatory neurotransmitter.
Okay.
Explain. So it's the stuff that
Exactly.
makes you go. But it is linked. Where do I start? I don't even know where to go. I know exactly. You know, like I was saying, I could not figure out why the body seemed to not like lactate as rest that much.
Right.
Right. I think I look at the problem the wrong way.
Okay.
In reverse. It's not that the body hates. Don't get me wrong. At some point, I'm probably going to find out that lactate at rest in the body has negative side effects.
Yes.
But there's a reason for that. So I was looking as to why it's a bad idea in the wrong place. So I'm looking at lactate, and if you remember long conversations ago, there's the orexin neurons that are directing the lactate. So it's written all that stuff there.
Yeah.
It's that the orexin neurons are are part of the system that are based on feeding and what they call wakefulness.
Okay.
That feeling of being awake, right?
Okay.
So that goes back to the circadian rhythms, which half nuclei is, and those orexin neurons go toward production of lactate.
Okay.
Right? It's actually right there. So what's interesting is also that the orexin neurons are one step before the locus coeruleus, where the noradrenaline is. That is the hormone of the sympathetic nervous system.
Okay.
Locus coeruleus is basically the center of the brain of behavior and all that stuff,
Right.
but it's the main producer of the noradrenaline, that is the neurotransmitter of the sympathetic nervous system.
Right.
I need to go through it because
At
at the end it becomes all
We
clear.
need a blackboard so that we can.
I know. At the end it becomes so clear and obvious, it's crazy. Right. So you have orexin neurons toward locus coeruleus that produces the noradrenaline. You have the lactate that is generated with all this, and then you have the circadian and the rhythm. There's a system prior to that. So it's not a deterministic way because it's all a feedback loop, right? But there are a system that seems to go this way. And so what I started to look was that connection lactate, osteocalcin, plenty about, and noradrenaline, because that's a triumvirate of the sympathetic nervous system. But there has to be a system that gets you there, because that's a triumvirate of the sympathetic nervous system. That means that you are in the sympathetic system, but something has to take you there. There's a deciding factor to go there, and that's where glutamate comes in.
Right.
Without glutamate, there is no production of osteocalcin. You need the glutamate to get into the osteoblast, like into the bone, for the osteoblast to start producing osteocalcin. I'm like, okay, that's interesting. What's very interesting is that we saw that in behavioral stress. What does I mean by that? It means like when you start to stress out, so for example, anxiety, stuff like that, stress as in the production of energy in behavior, that is, we have seen that is starting first through glutamate.
Okay.
That means that so what does that mean? It means whenever I get pissed, right, and my level of lactate raises, that is directly coordinated through glutamate.
Okay.
More than any other neurotransmitter, when you see lactate raising because of behavior, it's glutamate, which is the same one that's going to take the bones to start producing the osteocalcin.
Right.
I was like, ooh, that's very interesting. What's also very interesting is that glutamate decides those orexin neurons. It's a direct prior to the orexin neurons that will produce The noradrenaline. So that means that it's called a glutamatergic system. That is the excitatory system that decides basically when we go into the sympathetic. What's interesting about that is the zone where all that stuff is being produced and controlled and everything is a part of the prefrontal cortex where the sense of me and I are.
Right.
It's that entire part of the brain also toward the amygdala that is that fifth hierarchy that decides what goes conscious, what is not.
Right.
So you have what goes conscious, what does not. You have the sense of wakefulness, that the shift toward the sympathetic, which we know is energy spent toward the outside.
Right.
So, and that's what they call it, an excitatory neurotransmitter. And then the opposite of glutamate is the GABA stuff. I'm like, all right, what if not that we misunderstand, but what if there's a simple thing at play there actually? And to explain what I mean, and that because I will relate to why anxiety and the high levels of lactate. I want to define what is anxiety based on that. That wakefulness stuff. Right, so if you look, something I've talked about, can you open for the, no, she's over there, talking to Yaya. Okay, she just wants Yaya to open the door, that's funny. She wants to go see her. Look at my dog over there, that is actually a cat, wanting to go see my daughter. So she's there, and then she tries to open the door, and he's asking her, can you please let me in? I want to see you. Like, it's a fucking dog. Like, my cat is a dog.
So good.
Yeah, so I'm gonna call her Doggy. Then I'm gonna have a dog that I'll call Kitty. It'll be perfect. So funny. Anyway, moving forward. A lot of people say, for example, like they need carbs to recover or stuff like that.
Right.
And what we have seen is that carbohydrates actually do not allow you to recover any faster. So what it does is allow you to recover your glycogen stores faster. But a lot of time comes out of people saying, well, I feel more energetic when I have carbs. Right. But if you test, because it's been done through studies I can post, is that the rate of contraction of the muscle does not improve when you have carbs. That means that muscle fatigue does not change. That's not what allows you to go back to a high rate of contraction of the muscle, which is truly the definition of recovery.
Yeah.
So that was my argument from a long time. It's like, no, it's not the same thing as feeling more energetic. It's not the same thing as being recovered. So maybe feeling recovered is what they're looking for carbs. It's not being recovered, it's feeling like they have more energy. But what is feeling that you have more energy? Is having energy being spent toward the outside.
Right.
So is that what wakefulness is? That feeling of being awake. Is that not like an energy suddenly that is usable?
Yeah.
And usable toward what? The outside. Because the second you go toward the sympathetic, you get all that. And the senses are more attuned or what? Because that's what you need when the bear is coming.
Yeah.
So that access toward the sympathetic. So excitatory in that sense would be simply toward energy spent toward the outside, which relates to anxiety very much so.
Right.
So that means that we will need that glutamate in order to start the processes of feeling more awake, present, or stuff like that. So if you look at society today, isn't that what society asks you out of every second of every day now?
Right.
Hey. Social media, work, doing emails and stuff like that. And isn't that what really we're fighting for all day?
But I think even though society is asking that of you, I think more and more people are less and less there.
Exactly.
Right? So it's not energy they need. You don't need coffee. You just need to be present.
Present.
Which is the
wakefulness. It requires energy. Right. Exactly. That they can't get because their life is asking something it cannot provide. Because how can you be more and more there doing emails?
Right.
By definition, right?
It's not the most exciting.
It's not the most exciting thing in the world. So they're asking more and more hours at work where you're actually doing less and less. Yeah. Most people spend 8 to 10 hours at work while working too.
Right.
How much do you actually accomplish on Facebook?
Yeah.
Even though you can be there for 6 hours. How many people scroll Instagram stuff for hours without actually accomplishing anything? So if you look, it's a demand for alertness, for wakefulness that is not actually accomplishing anything.
Right. Yeah.
So we are pressing a specific button, which is what today's society is asking us to do. Is that a distraction system? Whatever it is, I find it very strange if you look at it from that perspective.
Right. So using glutamate as excitation button, if you will, what is needed in the body to produce the glutamate?
Right. So first of all, we find glutamate in foods.
Yeah.
So that's very interesting. Glutamine is where you're going to go glutamate or GABA.
Okay.
So the problem is when they give you GABA, some people even turn it into glutamate.
Okay.
Because basically, so if we look at I have to stop saying basically. If we look at the system prediction versus observation, where everything is a prediction, that means that it's a learning mechanism.
Yeah.
What that means that your body can learn to do whatever it is that you make it do enough that it gets good at it. Right. So if we look at glutamate as a base toward going toward the sympathetic, toward spending energy toward the outside, which is what the world is asking you, it's going to ask you to continuously get glutamate. So necessarily you're going to crave toward that.
Right.
So what I find very interesting is then for example, you find into foods. So specific foods like glutamate, like the MSG. That's what the G out of MSG is. Yeah, it's monosaturated.
No, it's not saturated.
It's
sodium. Sodium.
It's based on sodium. Yeah. It must be that. It's monosodium something glutamate.
Okay.
The MSG, the glutamate is that.
That's what makes you feel so good. I love MSG.
So what did I do? Yes. What did I say? Wakefulness, feeding behavior. So the more MSG you have, the more you want to eat.
Yeah.
Right. So people eat constantly too much, which will always be my position. Right. It's because it links to the wakefulness.
Right. Why did they ban it? Do you remember why they banned?
They didn't ban it.
MSG?
Bullshit. Yeah, because they realized it was a fucking drug given
basically.
to people to, you know where you have it in seaweed. For example, so sushi. Yeah.
Sushi, okay.
So you eat more and more and more, you can't stop. People eat seaweed like this now.
Right.
Because it goes toward that center of wakefulness, feeding or whatever, of being present.
Right.
That's fucked up.
So it keeps you present, eating food, and excites you. I love it. Manipulate the world this way.
Exactly.
Twinkies all around. Twinkies actually has a large amount of MSG. People don't know.
Of course. Well, yeah, because all that stuff is. You know what has, by the way, free glutamate? Parmesan tomatoes,
cheese.
Parmesan cheese, tomatoes. Right. So imagine pizza, carbs, Parmesan cheese, tomato sauce.
It sounds like
those two are massive amount of free glutamate. You put MSG into it, and you have carbs. So excitatory exactly.
So pizza should be the new pre-workout, is what you're
saying. There you go. Well, technically, Yes. Okay.
I was at the gym the other day, and I was hoping somebody would follow me. I was like, I want pizza, and nobody said anything. I was like, fine, I won't get pizza. So I didn't, but now I'm gonna get pizza, cheese pizza with extra Parmesan cheese.
It's gonna be hard to train, but right. So now having the free glutamate in your system, you have to be able to use it to because people are going to think because you have a glutamate. By the way, free glutamate is in all protein powders. Whey isolate, it's free glutamate through the roof. I was looking at the list of shit and I'm like, that's why you can't stop having it.
Right.
Because it feeds that wakefulness feeding system and stuff like that. That is the precursor to the sympathetic nervous system.
Right. So it's basically the most sympathetic fix you could get, right? Like the most...
You get the precursor of it. So you still... Okay, but so if you were to use it wrong, of course, you'll crash massively because you're feeding the precursor to the sympathetic nervous system that allows you to feel present and everything.
Right.
So if you play with that, but you don't take any action, then you're going to get a massive... So going back to our conversation on what anxiety is, right? So is it possible that anxiety comes out of the necessity to be awake?
Yeah, right.
Wakefulness. Is that the trigger?
Right.
Because I can be anxious going to a movie. Why? Because I want to see that movie so bad. I know I have to be at my best. Yeah. Is that what judgment is? Social judgment? Hey, whoosh, be present because you're going to be judged. Is that why anxiety toward competition? Because you're going to have to be present to do your best.
Right.
Is that, so we say wakefulness, but it's a word that humans created.
Yeah.
We need to refer to the feeling to understand it fully. Imagine the feeling of a competition. If you're going like this into a workout, you're going to be judged and suck.
Yeah.
What you need is to be at your sharpest. What's the sharpest? It's a big slap in the face. Hey, be there.
Right. You start
that feeling.
Yeah.
Right. And that's what the sympathetic is, obviously, because if you look when the bear is there, that's the first thing you go is like, that.
Starts to tingle.
Right. So if you take the physical threat, that would feel really good.
Mm-hmm.
Is that what this is? And is that what society is feeding us? Because look at Instagram, look at all that stuff. Look at the dopamine response and everything. It's that feeling of being present, being appreciated, being all that stuff. Hey,
right.
That's the trigger. So is that what the trigger to anxiety is? Is the need to be not present but wakeful?
Awake, like.
You know what I mean? But the problem is the word. It's not fitting, but you get my idea.
It's the feeling to take action, the wanting to take action,
right.
The wanting,
that.
Because you
right.
Like that's when I talk with clients, they're like, oh, well, I'm having coffee as a sympathetic fix with the caffeine. I was like, can you have tea in the morning and still have your day going? If the answer is yes, you're fine, right? If you need to have the coffee, otherwise your day's ruined, you're fucked.
Right. But so do you get that? Is the jolt of caffeine what you need? Because suddenly you're awake.
It creates you awake, yeah.
It makes you present in that sense. So present and awake for the brain are probably the same thing.
Right.
Because they're all sympathetic.
Yeah.
Side, which is energy toward the outside. So there's no sympathetic. Because this is functional segregation, the sympathetic, because we're talking about one simple part of the nervous system out of all of them, which is toward the peripheral and toward the not even autonomous, not even somatic. So it's a very small stuff that I keep referring to. Maybe that's what the fourth state, they don't match there. It's an overall, it's energy spent toward the outside.
Right.
So is that what the trigger of anxiety is? Hey, you need to be present in a world that is asking that of you continuously, even though it does not provide a reason to.
Right.
It's asking you to be present at work, but gives you email to do.
Yeah, exactly.
How fucked up is that? He's asking you to do friend, but does not tell you how to do a pull-up.
Right.
So you think you're going to have to produce more because you're judged in order to do the stuff. And they tell you all you need is to want it more.
Right.
To be present more.
Yeah.
That's the anxiety trigger.
It's like, and that's, I mean, thinking back on that conversation we had with the lactate, that correlation where the lactate levels were higher before the actual test.
Exactly.
Not during the test.
Exactly.
But that could be, so the glutamate excites you, brought you up,
and so judgment, and you're judging on what? On how present you are, because how well you do in that test.
Yeah.
Which in society, how we judge people is, can you perform when you need to?
Yeah.
Right. So are you awake? Are you present when you need to? And that's directly that stuff. And so that's why the levels of lactate are high. That will explain why, written there, we looked at the anxious depression versus what is called retarded depression. Right? Where the level of adrenaline, even on the schizoid stuff, was level of noradrenaline were very low when they were catatonic, but very high when they were on what is called a positive symptoms of schizophrenia, which is, I hear George V calling me. You know what I mean? But that's what they call a positive symptom technically. That's really hallucinations, right? Hallucination, we saw the levels of our noradrenaline is very high. I can be sure that during hallucinations, they are very present.
Very present, yeah. Interesting. So the levels of glutamate, and I may have gotten this wrong, but so you can ingest it, but it's self-produced in the body.
It's self-produced in the body, right.
But you have the observation, which would be kind of connected to the lactate a little bit, right? So the observations, the thinking of going towards the outside.
Yes, exactly. And then your body is like, hey, levels of lactate, understand? Because remember, the body also has to answer, right? So then here comes the osteocalcin, the sense of movement I was talking about.
Exactly.
So, but I need the glutamate for that. So I think something is coming, I put the osteocalcin, and then there's a feedback loop, that observation, prediction, and then now we decide, was I right? What's happening? And then we adapt as we go, because the system has to adapt based on the context, right? But you could see after a while, like, first of all, things run out. If you have to run, to produce glutamate all the time, maybe at some point you're so tired, and when you can't anymore, you have problems. So it's an arch, like homeostasis is a very important part of that. But so if you can't produce it or whatever, you could be looking at it in food. So it's not that glutamate is going to start a sympathetic, but it's giving you the precursor to do it. But imagine if you overload it with a food continuously, then anything that shouldn't be that bad, boom! So then you, at any moment, you'll be like, hey, even when you shouldn't, when you're not supposed to be. That's a somatic error.
Right.
There goes anxiety.
There it goes, yeah. Exactly.
You know what I mean? So you could have massive amount of somatic error just by constantly having a system ready to go. Right. There is no bear
Yeah.
chill the fuck out for a second, which is what we see.
Yeah, the people that take scoops and scoops of pre-workout and the BCAAs and the gluten
And protein shakes.
the protein shakes and everything. That's constant.
Right. So the system is like,
Yeah.
and by the way, if you have those levels continuously, you don't need to produce them.
Right.
So I bet you that creates a problem
yeah,
too.
because then you get off of them and the energy levels go to the
It goes to shit because then you never feel present.
Yeah.
Because you haven't learned to produce it in fucking 2 years. So the supplement industry might be feeding anxiety. So the system feeds itself.
Yeah.
The supplement industry might be feeding the levels of anxiety that require more supplements. So it's a perfect loop.
Yeah. Because that's, I don't get it anymore, but that was first thing you always get with clients. What supplement should I take?
Yeah.
That's
Yes.
what I've been taking. Do you think that there's better ones?
And stronger ones.
Yeah.
Then you get Jack 3D.
Yeah.
Because it worked. It worked.
It worked really well.
Well, the speed they put into it was actually pretty strong. But but that's the thing is then there is no. That's back to the drugs in the last podcast about anxiety. Then the drugs have to be stronger
Constantly, yeah.
because now that you're present, remember you need more presence. Maybe that's why there is no way out with that shit though. Because when are you present enough? Never.
Yeah.
It's a drug in itself. When you're truly present, you never want to let go of that.
Ever, yeah.
The system, because the energy toward the outside, who wants to go inside then? Now remember like when you feel almost forced to have to calm down everything and you hate every fucking second of it? Because the sympathetic by definition is attuned senses, is me, and then it's a drug in the sense of the body needs that as a survival tool first.
Yeah.
So I haven't even studied glutamate and the heart, but I bet you it's there.
There's gonna be that connection.
Because the heart rate spikes at the same time. So it has to be there. I haven't looked it up because there's so much to look now. But the connection to food I thought was super interesting. So that means I can look at your cravings. So now when we do the protocol, which is the next nutrition course we're going to make in June, right? I want to put this in.
Yeah.
I want to look at your cravings. I want to look at let's go on that one. Massive amount of free glutamate, casein.
Yeah.
Let's talk about sleep for a second.
We had that conversation a little bit yesterday.
Exactly. So, casein before sleep, I get vivid dreams. Vivid dreams mean REM sleep. REM sleep means expression of the sympathetic side. Right. So I get, but what are those dreams? Look at those dreams they are. First of all, your vivid dreams mean you're present in the dream.
Right.
Back to the same idea, right? But also those are schizophrenic dreams where you take action. You breathe underwater, you fly, you talk. It's always action-based. It's an expression of what you didn't do during the day.
Right.
So if you're someone who's not taking action during the day and everything, you need to do that at night. That's what the brain wants. It wants your brain to express. Right. So you will need the high levels of glutamate. Right. So maybe then we can go back and looking at
the casein and everything. Yeah.
So if that's what I need, then I can give you the casein. But maybe if your deep sleep is low, then I should give you magnesium.
Right.
Because magnesium, we know, is an anti-glutamate in that sense, from a neurotransmitter perspective.
Right.
So that's what I want to do for the next nutrition stuff, is go at anxiety and depression as nutrition as a tool, not a fix, but a tool, but looking at it even from a sleep perspective.
Right.
REM versus deep, and how we adapt glutamate versus more toward GABA or stuff like that. So
then looking at cravings, how would you, that'll come in the course, but that's interesting.
I don't know yet on some of it, because but okay.
We're making up as we go along.
Well, if I'm making up, I'm studying here, so thank you. So guess who at some point in the middle of track season was craving Parmesan to the point where she realized she had an issue with it? Janina? Yeah.
I've never had cravings for Parmesan. I guess when I have spaghetti, I would crave, but she would just eat it like a block.
Yeah.
Oh, that's weird.
Yeah, but she was like, and at some point it was so much fat, she was like, oh, I gotta back off and everything. But yeah, Janina is super. Yeah, but what is she consuming the most? Osteocalcin from the sprint and the impact. So in order to get there, what does she need? The glutamate to go toward the osteoblast, and then she chose Parmesan.
That's trippy. Yeah.
She hates tomatoes now. Because
she hates tomatoes.
Yeah, but there's all that stuff. What do I have for lunch? Tomatoes.
Yeah.
And cheese.
Right. Constantly.
Casein. Yeah. Casein and tomatoes. Every lunch. Why? Because I hate at 2:00 when I fall asleep.
Right.
Because I want to be awake and...
Yeah.
So, then after, is it good or bad? Depends if it's a fix, so then it gets complex. But you could see just based on that, where you are on the excitatory levels.
Yeah.
And then like, so last night, instead of having caffeine, I had magnesium. And I slept really well, but I don't remember sleeping. Now I feel tired today, so I don't know if it's that or not.
Yeah.
Because I have to be very careful. But so you know where glutamate, so that low-free glutamate diet was promoted for kids with autism.
Okay. And just to bring them down.
Yeah, and they were showing that kids with autism, actually, there's a huge problem with that, with folic acid toward the brain and toward the levels of glutamate. It's always an issue. Yeah. So I can drive myself too far then.
Right.
Yeah. So the magnesium, did I take too much? Or did I not adjust? Or what happened this morning? Is that because I didn't train? Right. I don't know, but
well, you were out of the routine, right? So the body's
that too. It's never good for me.
Wait a second.
Because then I don't remember. Did I gym? I don't remember. But I know the way I woke up, I was super rested, so probably my deep sleep went up. But maybe that's why my deep sleep is so low, because I'm always on excitatory levels, which I know my baseline is very high. But that also goes with the spectrum stuff.
Yeah.
But just by, we can link it even to nutrition. So that's why I want it on the next group, is we're going to go at that.
Right.
Because I'm testing it on me and Julien, but I want to go a bit further and see where that goes. Yeah.
That's an interesting one.
Right.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
That'll help a lot with anxiety, with people on high baselines on.
Right. So, because look at it this way. So,
or even on people with low baselines, because now
because now we know. So
and,
that's why you can be present. Yeah. But even like, then you know how to deal with anxiety, because maybe the trigger is like how present do you need to be in your day truly,
right?
Versus where you are or not. I mean, like, if you need to be present constantly, that eventually would drain you.
Right.
Is that what? Do you have anxiety because you feel the need to be more present all the time and you can't?
Right.
I bet you a lot of people will say it's exactly their problem.
Is this a feedback loop? Meaning, does the osteocalcin, so the propriogrip and the impact?
It would have to, yeah. But then because it would create the osteocalcin, but it requires a fuel for it,
right?
Which requires the glutamate as a neurotransmitter to get there. So it's always a feedback loop anyway. It's never deterministic, but doesn't matter. You'll need the glutamate, which you can produce yourself. So you don't need the food technically. But imagine if you were to drain it too much or stuff like that. And to me, honestly, the most important part is that the trigger for anxiety, the need to be present, the need to be awake.
Yeah.
Is that what people say when they say like, I don't feel have enough energy with our carb or whatever? Are they talking about the fact like I feel tired, which is not true because sometimes they're in freeze, they're not physically tired, but maybe that's not what they're saying. Maybe they just use the wrong word by saying I'm tired. No, you're not. You're just not feeling awake.
Right. Yeah.
And so the problem would be that, but maybe you don't need to. But you're in a society that, well, you think you do. In a society that asking you social media to be awake 24/7, where by definition you can't. So you feel you have a low energy. No, you think you're in a situation where you need to be awake, where you're not, because now you're done with your training session. Yeah, but I love that feeling of being awake. I'm like, yeah, but it's an excitatory state.
Right.
And right now, that's not what you can have.
No.
So to teach people that low energy is not a low energy state. You just, at this moment, might not require to be awake. And that's where your anxiety is coming from. That's why you feel you can never rest, because you want that excitatory feeling. That would link you to MSG and stuff like that. Is that how we created also a generation of awake addicts, wakefulness addicts, by just giving them MSG all day long?
Right.
In the US, you could see that. And then that would feed the carbs because the carbs trigger the sympathetic.
Right, yeah.
So did we do this? Is Western civilization through capitalism then is a necessary conclusion of capitalism in Western society leading to massive amount of anxiety? And that means there's no other way, because the food industry will direct
everything
toward MSG and carbs that can only create more anxious people then, requiring the need of what we do to be even greater.
Right.
So we might be the only breaks toward anxiety.
Like a post-apocalyptic world, like somebody planned this. Well, if you think about it though, like when they have like the research groups, like those tasters, right?
Yeah.
And you give them, and they're like, ooh, well, they're gonna keep putting more.
Well, if you give people what they want, guess what you get? You get this. Yeah. You get this. So is that what the trigger is, that feeling of wakefulness? Because then we can teach people the truth, which is no. I understand why you want that, but you have to understand it's based on context.
Right.
You can't, it's like, pleasure is the goal of life. No, it isn't. Knowledge is. Like you can't have pleasure all day.
Right.
Well, you're going to, otherwise it wouldn't be pleasure.
Yeah.
Because it'll be the same. Right. Everything, there's no light without darkness.
Heroin, right? I mean, basically.
Right. Exactly. Right. But there's no light without darkness. So it doesn't work like that. So you can't have that feeling of wakefulness all day. But maybe now they think it's happiness.
Right.
You know what I mean?
So it's that constant.
Because you go towards sympathetic, it's energy spent toward the outside. So I'm pretty sure that's what people, when they refer to I need energy, they just, no. You just want to spend the energy toward the outside instead of toward the inside. Right. And that is an excitatory state.
Yeah. And you see that a lot.
And so what happens if you can't look inside because you don't like what you see?
Mm-hmm. That's what I deal with a lot, right? Because then that gives even more anxiety to want to be towards the outside.
Because then the only way out is to feel awake.
So
what that means that anytime you're not awake, you're looking in.
Yeah.
Oh, is that the trigger? Right. And what do the old people with depression tell you? Like they never feel awake. They feel they're in a daze all day. Yeah, because they can't reach an excitatory state because they broke it basically.
Right.
But then the food will feed something that comes right back. So even that food, to try to get them into excitatory state, if they're in the wrong mindset and everything, would just crash them back straight into that depression. Yeah, straight into that freeze. Yeah. Because by now the system have learned that it was a bad idea to do, and so it brings you back right away. Just like obesity, the more you eat, the more fat, the less energy goes to the brain, the more it wants to eat, the more you fuck up the system, the more it turns to fat, the more the brain wants food.
Yeah.
Same idea, I mean.
Yep. Yeah. That's fucking awesome.
So that one I was like, oh, that excitatory state, I think that's the key. So is that the trigger, that wakefulness feeling? Right. What I like about this is then that's a conversation we can have with people.
Right, because if you look at the high anxiety people, they constantly want to be in that active, positive reaction to stress level, right? That positive 7, 8. If you look at those depressed people, they don't even know how to get out. And then as soon as you try and get them out, it just crashes them back down.
And the second, and all they want to sleep all day, and they go,
so the
they can't get excited.
Give them tomatoes and Parmesan cheese slowly.
And feed. But what did we see? We see the fight mode is the only way out, which means you need to be awake, but we need to see why your system thinks being awake is such a dangerous thing, is such a bad thing. Yeah. Probably because you're so fucking scared of your environment that being awake. So I think people have anxiety, like want to be awake so they don't look in. And people that look in too much depressed are staying there because they can't look out because they're afraid to go outside the cave.
Yeah.
So inside the cave, outside the cave might be actually the system, the way it works. Which is awakeness versus the opposite of it, whatever that is. Because even wakefulness is not the correct word, but you get the idea. They're still looking inside versus looking inside. To me, that's as simple as looking at the outside world, reality, versus looking at the inner world. I think anxious people do well, which is what we see, like your executives people, the stuff that only want to work because it's dealing with the outside and cannot deal with the inside. And the people that deal with the inside cannot deal with the outside. And I think those are the extremes where we see anxiety to depression.
Right.
All right, we have a full snowstorm outside.
Yeah, it's crazy.
It's crazy.
I can see it over there. But so that's, that there needs to be that balance, right? Which would be where that flow fight state
exactly.
would be.
Right.
Oh, I have to sneeze.
But pirate ship. Yeah, exactly. But so is food, I don't want people to see food as anything but a tool here.
Yes.
But he would do this going like full blown. But then you could
look over there though. Holy shit, it's like a blizzard.
Yeah, it is.
Sorry
crazy.
Guys, we get excited with these things.
No, because it was sunny like fucking 20 minutes ago. Holland is insane. It's the most insane weather. Anyway.
It was 25 degrees last week.
That's like 3 days ago. Yeah. 3 days ago, it was between 15 and 20 all day.
Yeah. But anywho.
It was sunny today at some point. So a life of carbs and MAG that is just waiting to feed the sympathetic would make you susceptible to fall into that wakefulness syndrome, whatever we're going to call it. I'll let you find a cool word for all this.
Yeah, I'll have to.
I don't know, but I know you'll come up with something.
That's an interesting one. So then, I mean, and there's no absolutes there, but usually you see people more on the obese side lean more towards depression, but that's false. It's more towards anxiety, and the control is the food, because that's the thing that excites them, but then they can't take action
up until the system crashes.
Right.
So that's the thing too, is like all things, like you can't sustain either.
Right.
Right. Like, so for example, like a system awake all the time will work until it doesn't.
Right.
So functional, dysfunctional, but eventually crash. Because if you drive the stuff so far away from homeostasis, this is how the body applies the brakes.
Yeah.
I mean, so there's different brakes. If you go too sympathetic, like you'll see the parasympathetic applying the brakes, but eventually there's system in place, for example, where once you have used, let's say, a neurotransmitter, it stops being produced for a while.
Right.
You know why? So you can come back.
Yeah.
Because you've learned to just use it too much, the body is going to wait a while. There's always a delay, and the delay would be like, why? Yeah. Well, the delay is so that you can, it's a brake system. Right. Like, okay, you overused it, let's wait, and then we can start again. But imagine in that case of the glutamate, if the food is behind, keep pumping it up, then you could just go too far and now really crash.
Right.
But then be addicted of that feeling of wakefulness, and that's your trigger for anxiety.
Yeah.
In a world that is asking it all the time without providing a reason why.
Right.
The world is asking you to be present all day, never tells you why. It's asking you to be present, to do emails, to look at chicks on Instagram, to look at, it's asking you for constant wakefulness without ever saying why.
Right.
So you're screwed.
Yeah. That's crazy. Yeah.
And that's the trigger.
Yeah.
That excitatory state. So then we can start, that's a conversation we can have. And going like, no, I don't need you into that state. Right. All day.
Yeah.
I understand that you like it and it feels better, but then we need to be able to explain to those people like there's nothing wrong with looking inside. Or if there is, that's why we have, but that's why we have to talk about.
Yeah.
But then it frames the conversation differently for me.
Right.
All right, what are you not looking at?
Yeah.
Is it inside or outside?
Right. Yeah, because I had a client that's constantly like that. So I was like, I just want you to just sit for 45 minutes and breathe. And see what happens. And she was already like not happy about it. I was like, well, we see these patterns, right?
Yes, exactly.
You're constantly going. So you said there was glutamate and the other one was GABA. And now does GABA have the opposite effect or where do you find GABA?
Oh, you can. There's pills.
Yeah.
There's pills. But then
you're fixing you're not fixing anything, right?
You've never learned to the problem is your GABA are low. So then they give you GABA pills. Yeah, but first of all, some people take the GABA, turn it into glutamate.
Yeah, no matter what.
No matter what. But I bet you those are the people that we're going to find to our anxiety and everything. That's the thing, is you don't get to cheat the system.
Right.
I can give you GABA. By the way, just because glutamate is in the system doesn't mean you can use it.
Okay.
That they solve that. So you gave just glutamate to depressed people, you go like, oh well, but it's there. Therefore what? You still have to go to the sympathetic. All I give you is, wrong analogy, but the fuel to go there.
Yeah.
But that doesn't mean just because I open the door doesn't mean you're going to cross it.
Well, it's a passive approach, right?
Exactly.
We talk about versus the active
so
one.
we're giving you the tools to go there. That doesn't mean you will.
Right.
And so even if I give you GABA, it doesn't do shit. And some people can actually take it and turn it into glutamate. And I believe those are people that are, like for example, Janina has very low levels of GABA. Yeah, no shit.
Yeah.
But me giving you GABA won't do shit. So they gave her glutamine as a supplement. She had stomach pain, 4-pack, and crashed like in a backstage for 1 week because she took the glutamine, turned it into glutamate,
and then
boom,
went through the roof.
4-pack for a week straight. Couldn't eat. It was so bad. I was like, that's why.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
No,
worst supplement ever for her. Like for over a week, she like I thought I was going to die. I'll never take it again. First thing is 4-pack. Remember?
Yeah.
So the glutamine did that. Glutamine can go, and then you want glutamate. For her, of course, it did. If you give her GABA, I bet you she'll turn it into glutamate. Plus, even if she has a GABA, she won't use it.
Yeah.
It doesn't work like that.
Right. It's just not.
No, because the body is a learning system, and it's like, if we want to go there, well, I'm going to do everything I can to go there. So it doesn't matter. Intent is still everything. There is no amount of food I can give you that will change your intent.
Yeah.
So it's intent first, and then we can look at food as a tool to help
her
you.
Wanting to make the change that would start the whole thing, right?
Exactly, right. Moment. But then she was getting to track, starting to go like this. What did she want? Parmesan.
Yeah.
But then she was smart enough to go, ooh, that does not sound right. Her intuition was like, that's wrong. I'm starting to want it too much. There's a problem. So because now her intent is to find balance.
Right. Yeah.
Whereas before she would have gone and say, I love Parmesan.
Yeah.
No.
The magic tool.
Exactly.
You want to run faster? Eat Parmesan cheese.
Exactly. But then imagine how dangerous that is then if it's in food.
Yeah.
Because now, no.
Yeah. Well, then that's a whole other way to look at different cravings and.
Exactly. So that's what I want. So that's the next step for the protocol. Is the cravings,
right.
And then and also even for sleep, then REM sleep versus deep sleep. Then I know how to play with supplements before you go to bed, but never as a crutch, always as a tool. And but at least I can analyze the cravings in a better setting now, because there's a bunch of stuff where I was like, well, that makes sense, or it doesn't. Like I can never get a better deep sleep no matter what with the caffeine, even though my REM sleep was through the roof. I'm like, well, I get it. I mean, that's why I like it so much, because then the dreams are so vivid that I'm super exactly. But then I'm present continuously, which is what I'm addicted to. Me, for example, is that constant present. Because when I'm present, that's when I do my best work. Because with what I do the studying, I have to be super present. Yeah. But I'm safe because I actually do something with it. I train. I have the the MMA, the studies.
You stop taking the action.
Right. If I were not doing that, then my anxiety would be through the roof. Maybe that's why I'm tired today, because I didn't train.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah, that'll be a good one. And then you were talking about the hierarchy of the nervous system and how it plays.
Right. So the glutamate also was linked to specific part of the brain, which is the prefrontal cortex, where the I and the me exist and stuff like that, but also the amygdala, that is the center of the fifth hierarchy, which is to bring things to consciousness or not.
Right.
Back to wakefulness.
And so it was the fifth, and then it was the seventh that you could jump, or was it the fifth?
So the seventh is the default mode network.
Yeah.
And the eighth is the ultimate one. The fifth is the one that decides where if things go consciousness or not.
Right.
So wakefulness, bringing things to consciousness.
Right.
That's straight amygdala glutamate link. Yeah.
That's awesome.
So maybe, but then that's why amygdala is a fear center, because it brings things to consciousness, but nothing makes you awake like fear.
Right. That's the driver of most things.
So I think, but I think the fuck up we do is that we do need to use words, but there's the problem, is they don't explain the concepts well.
Right.
Fear is a wrong idea to put it, because it's just bringing things to consciousness. Fear is just a way to do it. Fear might be just a driver toward wakefulness, toward being present. Too much of it, well, it depends on, I mean, like, so there's a concept there that I think will have to change within neuroscience, is the way we use words is just not functioning well. Because we put the good or bad to it. That's really the main issue. Whereas it's not that. Everything is a function. There's no good or bad. So that's the real issue with all that stuff. But so you have something between the fifth hierarchy and glutamate as well. Yeah. If it's amygdala, then it's right there. And so I'm going to start looking at the hierarchies to see the glutamate and which hierarchies are the most touched by it.
I like it. That is awesome.
Yeah.
To start looking.
Because we're going to do it from different perspectives. We're going to do it from the anxiety, but then I'll do it from the food. On the next, in June, I'll do another nutrition course, and then we'll apply that to sleep, anxiety versus depression, all that stuff. Because by then I'll have 2 months to test that. Yeah.
I like it.
Yeah.
Beautiful.
So that's where we are.
That's where we're going. Solid, guys. So keep up to date on the Mighty Network, Strongfit Community, Juliens Corner. I'm sure that you guys will probably see a couple more.
Yeah.
Juliens Corner Podcast more in depth than
on this,
the more scientific.
Yeah, all that stuff. There's so much now that I have to go through. It's going to be crazy.
And we'll see you guys in the next episode.
Yep.
Have a good one.